So Carolyn Gilbert, president and founder of New Voodoo Media Services, Leigh Jacobs, executive vice president of research analysis. We've been doing this a long time, both as people who consume research from vendors and obviously for the last, in some cases, several decades, providing research services. So let's do the top 10 research mistakes that radio stations make. This is finding number 10. AMTs, an acronym that means?
Auditorium Music Test, otherwise known as the Great Mayonnaise Festival.
I can't believe stations really still do these gatherings downtown right after work, feeding them banquet sandwiches in exchange for their opinion. You can't even find anybody to work in a hotel these days.
Yeah, no, it is old line methodology that worked in its day. It did. There was no other way to get things done.
Right.
But I remember, the field service, when I started, we had a 3-paragraph confirmation letter for the field service, the people who recruit these tests. By the time I finished, it was, I think, 7 or 8 pages of single-spaced paragraphs where they had to initial every paragraph because of all the creepy things that they could do over the years that we'd bust. No, you may not post in a library, in a firehouse, in your building lobby. I mean, just everything you could think at the university, in the jail, whatever. It was quite the adventure to try and get ahead of what they were going to do to try and scam you. And then you still sit there at the end praying people would show up.
Sure. Yeah. I remember vividly driving past, driving up an interstate to go host one of those tests when I started working for you in '99. And I see the station's call letters on the hotel reader board that I can see from the highway that the WXXX music event tonight here.
Yeah. There's a list of stories like that.
Right.
I mean, and plus the methodology itself. Too many hooks, all in the same order. Crowd response influencing the results. The sound system goes out. The cookies didn't show up on time. The drunk guy.
The geography. You're going to get a circle around that hotel location. Yep. It's not going to look like the market. It's going to look like, where did you get to do it?
Not representative.
Doing several of them in some large markets where you'd put groups together around the metro, but that usually isn't affordable.
And then you're kind of stuck with the results, right? Because there is a huge expense involved in what we used to call buffering an auditorium music test, which means you had to re-rent the banquet facility and refeed your participants and just to get another 30 bodies in tab.
Yeah. I mean, and I have redone full tests because it was just wrong.
You did one for me in Denver.
I remember that. Because it was just wrong. And the fact of the matter is, your per respondent fee, first of all, now, I mean, it's $100 you pay them. It cost $100 to $200 to recruit each person. Yeah. So that the radio station expense was enormous. And by the way, there are still companies charging that much for an OMT, which I can tell you doesn't cost nearly that much for better.
So we're talking, it has to be over $30,000 then for just doing the math, right? For a 100 sample.
To start.
Yeah. 35.
That's before anybody makes a profit.
Yeah. And guess what? We can do it cheaper than that. Well, no, we will not do an AMT cheaper than that. Right. But there's methodology for the 21st century that is far superior.
Yep. So let's talk about that. We call them OMTs, or online music tests.
Yes.
Right. And they're recruited perfectly online. I routinely look at, what's the geographic distribution look like on a sample? And hey, son of a gun, it pretty much matches the market. I remember vividly looking at one going, this doesn't look like the market. And then I went back and went to Radio Locator to look at a signal map, and it looks like they're Cume. Got it.
And so you can kind of keep the questionnaire live until you get the right number of bodies from the right locations that are the right ages. And so the samples are pretty much perfectly balanced.
They're not much perfectly balanced. They're perfectly balanced.
They are perfectly balanced. They're also, I mean, what I do, I go through all of our OMTs myself. besides the general, you're disqualified if you say you're a P1 and you're unfamiliar with half the music. One of those two things is a lie. You're out of it. If you straight line, no, everything is not your favorite. No, you are not burned on everything. You're out of there. There are so many things you can look at and say, you're out of there. If you fail one of our test questions, no, 3 plus 4 is not DK, or whatever, or whatever gobbledygook the bot might write. We ask questions that a bot can't answer.
So basically anyone indiscriminately answering, you can catch them. You can also see if their song responses don't match their profile, a station, member of the station core giving an hour a week or a day of time spent listening to radio probably is more familiar with the songs and isn't going to mark everything unfamiliar. So you've got ways of using logic to check.
Right.
Absolutely. And there's no group activity, plus the fact everything's randomized.
So how do you guys deal with the idea of a station? Just, it's a big library station. They like to platoon an A package and a B package in their library every couple of months. How do you deal with the problem of, I need to test 600 hooks?
EXT.
The EXT. And by the way, what does it stand for?
I don't know.
So that's the OMT EXT. And this is the way that we test more songs without burning out respondents.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, using sample monads so that every song, is heard by exactly the sample that you wanted. If it's 100 Cumers, if it's 50 core to you and some number of core to a competitor, et cetera, a particular ethnic breakdown, whatever it is, every song is heard by exactly that panel of respondents. But we break the test up into, 2, 3 monads, Carolyn?
Usually 3 sections, so that nobody's listening to more than 150 or 200 hooks, which is a manageable amount of time. They're all randomized. So some people hear the songs at the end of the list. Some people hear the songs at the beginning of the list or the middle. And the really nice thing about this is we've been using perceptual questions as palette cleaners between the pods.
Song pods.
The pods of music, yeah.
Forever. Well, instead of 100 respondents, you're going to get often 300 to 400 respondents answering those perceptual questions. So suddenly, music is repeated measure, so statistically that's great. Now your perceptual section has a little more weight and is a little more meaningful.
And we can test music, though it's not the OMT EXT, but if somebody's on a really razor thin budget, you've got a way of getting it done for far less than $30,000.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, a little less than a third of that. We call it OMT Lite, 400 hooks maximum, 100 sample, exactly the sample that we do for any other test, screened exactly the way you want it. But it's just 400 titles. There are no perceptual questions. That's it. We've stripped it down to the bare minimum, and the price tag for that CG is
a low $9,500 with no extras. Oh, and all of our tests also include all the hook production.
Yeah.
So pay $30,000+ for a bad recruit, statistically not representative of your audience. If they show up, great. And if not, you're stuck feeding them and renting a banquet room again, or you call Leigh and Carolyn. 400 songs, less than 10K.
Right.
And we still do the 600 in the EXT version. And by the way, some clients, we're here to do what the client wants us to do. If the client demands 100 of the same people listening to 600 hooks, it will take a little longer because people have no patience. It's not what we recommend necessarily, but certainly when we do it, it is good research with a qualified sample every single time. We have timers. We collect data they don't know we're collecting. We have geolocators. If it says Shanghai, China, I laugh and don't pay for it. But you don't pay for bad respondents because I don't pay for bad respondents ever. So it's a win for everybody.
All right. Well, we have just scraped the very surface of the costly mistakes that radio stations make in conducting or implementing research, and we're going to get to 9 more of them. So please join us in our next video.
New Voodoo builds digital products and conducts research and marketing campaigns for clients.
It's easy to get in touch. Drop us a line at tellmemore@newvoodoo.com.